Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you and welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. And I am not sure
Florida
where that sound is coming from here, but we are going to figure that out. We appreciate you joining us here on Florida Live as these things continue to play. Give me 1 second here.
Florida Live starts now.
All right, in case you didn't know it, Florida Live does start now, but we have a lot to cover over this next hour, so I want to let you know some of what you can expect. We expect a news conference in the next little bit from the DOJ announcing federal charges in some gang and drug trafficking cases right here in Florida. Meanwhile, Tesla on trial in South Florida. We're going to talk with Politico about that, but the big story today is weather, because we know much of the state is under a flood watch right now as these tropical downpours move across the state. I want to bring in Fox 35 storm team meteorologist TJ Springer, who has been going live on Facebook, joined me on Fox Local just a little bit ago. And TJ, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon. We know that there's a lot of areas getting lots and lots of rain, continuing to at this hour in the afternoon.
Garrett, it's just been a deluge out there, really. Yeah, I know we've been talking about this all morning long, really for the last week or so, but certainly not the prettiest day to be out and about. You can see it from our camera here outside our studios. It is just dumping as we speak.
And we know that's, there have been some places that have estimated to get 7 inches of rain or more than that just in the past few hours.
Yeah, it really is unbelievable. We've seen the atmosphere supercharged with moisture, and it's continuing to bring these bursts of really torrential rain. We're seeing it around downtown Orlando right now. Our exclusive radar out of eastern Orange County here on Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar showing still some pretty good pockets of rain. The heaviest north of downtown Orlando, across portions of Volusia County, really the I-4 corridor, seeing some really good rain just north of Sanford, across Lake Monroe, up toward Deltona, around Lake Helen, and some more now getting into northern Lake County. And I know, Garrett, when I was on earlier with you, that's where we saw the most lightning. Thankfully, there's not as much lightning with this now. We still have heavy rain that's getting into northern Lake and eastern Marion County. But nothing quite like we were seeing earlier. Only around 9 strikes here in the last, I think, 45 minutes versus, I think, around 100 strikes that we have when we were talking a little bit earlier on.
Yeah, and TJ, this storm, these rounds of storms continuing to move west and toward the Gulf.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, they're going to continue to move toward the Gulf as we head through the remainder of the day. And I just realized how zoomed in my camera is. I'm going to see if I can, gotta love technology, okay? I'm going to see if I can zoom out this camera real fast. So give me 1 second so I'm not quite so large. Hopefully it'll stay put. There we go. Okay, that's better. That's a little bit better. So in terms of the rainfall, it's looking like the heaviest has really fallen across portions of Brevard County and portions of Marion County, some of Volusia County, and even in southeastern Orange County. Oh, it did it again. Let's see if I can do this one more time. See if I can make myself not so large here. Gotta love technology, right, Garrett?
Yes, we've been dealing with it here too.
Okay,
right,
that's the better. The world does not need that much.
And you
TJ.
might be able to pop up the graphics too, so we can see it.
Sure. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, I think that's better. How's that look, Garrett? Is that a little better on your end?
Yes, much better.
So here are some of the rainfall reports here, and this is serious. You know, we had some flash flood warnings across portions of Brevard County earlier on. Those have thankfully been allowed to expire, but over the last 12 hours, you can see north of Mims, 7-8 inches of rain, and that much rainfall. To put it in perspective, I know Garrett and I said this earlier, this is like around 7 to 8 feet of snow. So now, while we don't have flash flood warnings, we do have some flood advisories for just lower lying spots that have dealt with this influx of moisture, of heavy rains. This is for Volusia County, and this includes places like Deltona, DeLand, Orange City, and Pearson over toward Marion County, which is where we've been seeing some of that heavy rain. So now this has been updated until 3:45, 2:15 for Volusia County. We're all under this flood watch, though, through 8 o'clock. And this is going to be the time frame, really, where we're seeing the most amount of rain. It's not like we won't see rain even past 8, but I think the rain, we're going to start to see more bands of rain versus this steady dumping of rain that we've had throughout the entirety of the morning so far, and really through the wee hours of our morning at that. Now, at 2 o'clock, we usually get our updates from the National Hurricane Center. They came in a little bit earlier today, but still really no change. We're still at a 40% chance of development over the next 48 hours as well as the next 7 days as this invest or this tropical wave moves off the Gulf Coast into the warm Gulf waters. That's where it could potentially become, it sounds like at least a tropical depression at this point, but maybe a tropical storm. And Garrett, I think just the exact track is what's really going to be key. That and how much wind shear kind of tears at this. It's such a fickle situation. Obviously, we would love to have the wind shear tear it apart, but the Gulf is so warm that anything could help this organize, really, with the temperatures that they're at.
All right. Certainly something to keep an eye on. Fox 35 Storm Team Meteorologist TJ Springer, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon as we continue to watch that flood threat across the state.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Hope everyone stays safe out there and just plans accordingly.
All right, good advice there. Well, we're going to get you live now inside this news conference from the U.S. Attorney Greg Kehoe, Special Agent in charge of the FBI, Tampa Police, Lakeland Police, talking about a couple of different incidents. One of them in Tampa where they say they have some arrests within the Glock Boys street gang. They say they were involved in massive financial fraud. Made arrests of several Tampa men charged with a slew of crimes in connection with those alleged gang activities, and they now all face up to life in prison. So let's go ahead and listen in as this news conference continues.
Of violent crimes. After they finish their terms, they will back out on the street doing the same thing they did before, engaged in violent crimes and narcotics trafficking. But thanks to the efforts where the FBI, again, and the Lakeland Police Department were bringing these 14 individuals to bear today. As an aside, one of the individuals, when they attempted to arrest them last week, fled and was engaged in a car chase and a car crash with the Lakeland Police Department. What's important to take away from this press conference is this, that law enforcement is here to demonstrate not only to the public but to these gangs, not only in Tampa, not only in Lakeland, but throughout the Middle District of Florida, that law enforcement is here and these individuals are going to be prosecuted to the fullest. These are 2 indictments involving 15 individuals, and I give you my word that law enforcement is dedicated to the goal that there will be additional indictments, and they are not going to give up until these criminal organizations are taken off the board. It is essential that law enforcement, federal, state, and local, be responsive to the safety needs of this community. And that's what we will do. And that's what we will continue to do. 19 people, if you think anybody thinks this is the end, this is not the end. This is just the beginning. And we will continue to pursue this over the years to do everything possible to make our community safe throughout the Middle District of Florida. That's what the people in this community want, and that's what we have been tasked to do, and we will do it. What I'd like to do right now is give my law enforcement colleagues an opportunity for a few words, starting with Matt Fodor of the FBI.
Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Fodor, Special Agent in charge of the FBI Tampa Field Office. I'm proud to stand here today with our local law enforcement partners to reassure the communities we serve that we are turning up the heat to crush violent crime and restore safety. How are we doing this? Teaming up. Surging our collective resources and with continued federal pressure, targeting criminal enterprises to ultimately dismantle and disrupt. The two investigations U.S. Attorney Kehoe just highlighted are perfect examples of how we are getting the job done. Our work with Lakeland Police, sharing resources and intelligence, led to the identification of a drug trafficking group responsible for a significant increase in fentanyl-related deaths and overdoses over the last year. The people responsible were arrested for their roles in this criminal activity, but the federal government didn't stop there. We are tenacious. 14 members of this organization are now facing federal charges. Not only are they off the streets, but they are facing charges that could carry substantial prison time and that will keep them out of business for a long time. When gun violence threatened our safety in Tampa, we turned to our partners at Tampa Police to help disrupt two violent criminal networks out of West Tampa, Robles Park and the Glockies. The violent feud between these two gangs spilled into the streets beginning in June 2020. And in numerous incidents, including the shootout in the parking lot of the International Mall, put innocent bystanders at risk. Like the investigation in Lakeland, the federal government wanted to make sure these criminals couldn't terrorize our community anymore. In addition to state charges, 3 Robles Park members and 5 Glockies are facing federal indictments. Both investigations I just described demonstrates the goal of FBI's Summer Heat initiative. And as Greg alluded to, this is just the beginning. You will continuously see the federal government surging resources with our state and local partners executing federal warrants on violent criminals and fugitives and dismantling these dangerous criminal networks so we can crush violent crime and make our communities safe and secure. Make no mistake, we are not done. As Greg alluded to, this is just the beginning. We're coming for you. Thank you.
I have Chief Lee Burkhardt from the Tampa Police Department.
Today is a result of a comprehensive investigation and the Tampa Police Department's commitment to the safety of everyone in our city. Make no mistake about it, the streets of Tampa are safer with the indictments of these 5 individuals. I want to begin by thanking the federal partners for their collaboration and dedication throughout this investigation. We have a great relationship with the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office, whether it's crime fighting or protecting our citizens at special events. This gang, known as the Glockies, wreaked havoc on our community, showing a total disregard for those who live here. As the U.S. Attorney mentioned, this group is linked to multiple shootings across our city, and each defendant involved stands charged with conspiracy to commit murder in aid of racketeering activity, along with other various serious charges. And as you heard earlier, on top of this violence, this group was involved in identity theft and other fraud reaching nearly $3 million. Thanks to the tireless efforts of our detectives, we were able to connect them to their crimes and hold them accountable. Their commitment to justice made today's outcome possible. Let me be absolutely clear. This kind of criminal behavior will not be tolerated in the city of Tampa. We will not allow gangs or anyone else to endanger the safety of our citizens. Today's indictments should have a clear and resounding message. If you choose to engage in violent crime, you will be pursued, you will be caught, and you will face the consequences of the Tampa Police Department and all of our local, federal, and state partners. We always say that Tampa is safer together, but I can tell you Tampa is not safer for the criminals. and this is a clear example of why.
I can present to you Captain Ty Thompson of the Lakeland Police Department. I don't know if you want to take a moment to try to put your light back on. You wouldn't want to miss a word.
I liked it.
Captain
I liked it
Thompson's
off. I liked it off. Yeah, the gentleman that went.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Do you want us to start, or do you want to just give him 30 seconds and see if I can watch it?
I'm like you. Much ginger.
You tell us when, okay?
Officials at this news conference in Tampa continuing to talk about a number of arrests in connection with a couple of different cases. Again, one out of Lakeland, one out of Tampa. And you heard them discuss the message they said that they hope they are sending to gangs, that their activity is not welcome in the community. We're going to take a quick break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is time now for our Tampa Connection, and for that we go to Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay. And Nancy, good to see you this afternoon.
It's good to see you as well, Garrett. And today we're going to start with something that we've spent a lot of time talking about here on Florida Live, and that is the saga surrounding the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, we learned that the team's $1.7 billion sale to a group that's led by Jacksonville-based developer could actually become official by September. Now, that's according to a report published by The Athletic. Last month, team officials confirmed that they were in talks to sell the team, with Dreamfinders Homes president and CEO Patrick Zalupski leading the group of investors interested in buying the franchise. Now, the drama over the future of the Tampa Bay Rays has been going on for quite some time now. Last year, it seemed like the Rays had finally secured a new home when leaders in Pinellas County, as well as in the city of St. Petersburg, approved hundreds of millions of dollars in funding for a new ballpark. The 30,000-seat domed stadium was set to open in time for the 2028 season as part of a multi-billion-dollar redevelopment of St. Pete's historic gas plant district. However, this past March, the team nixed the deal, saying the project had been pushed back and would cost more money as a result. County commissioners said the 2024 hurricanes forced them to postpone final approvals of the bonds for the ballpark. The Rays are currently playing their 2025 home games at Steinbrenner Field here in Tampa after Tropicana Field sustained significant damage during Hurricane Milton. Now, St. Pete is working to finish repairs in hopes of the Rays returning to the Trop for the 2026 season. The team's lease with the city runs through 2028 with nothing set in stone from there. Now, as of this morning, neither the Rays nor Zalpuski's group has commented on this report regarding the potential sale. And we also learned that Major League Baseball decided that the Tampa Bay Rays will play all potential 2025 playoff games, including the World Series, at Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. There had been discussions about the Rays playing postseason games at a different site due to the reduced capacity at Steinbrenner Field, as well as there may have been a revenue issue tied to that because it is a smaller ballpark. But not only did the MLB say that they could stay at Steinbrenner for the postseason, but they added that there is a possibility of actually adding more seats to Steinbrenner Field. Right now, Steinbrenner Field can hold a little more than 10,000 people. Garrett?
It is certainly an intimate atmosphere there, and would make for some really interesting playoff atmosphere there.
Yeah, it would be really interesting, and I think it would be more fun because, as you mentioned, it is a more intimate setting. Everybody's excited. I think all the energy, so I think it would be interesting to have it there. Plus, once the time playoff games come around, it will be a little bit cooler, so the weather will be nicer because, unlike Tropicana Field, there is no dome over Steinbrenner Field.
Yeah, certainly an added element there. Story number 2, and that, we've been talking a lot about the weather, but saw some impacts in the Bay Area last night as storms moved through as well.
Yeah, we definitely had some bad weather come through last night that toppled trees, knocked out power, and even caused a house fire in Pasco County, as well as at a Tarpon Springs apartment complex. And we also learned that lightning may have struck a Southwest airplane at TPA. This has been our top story all day. Southwest Airlines says Flight 1476, which was bound for Fort Lauderdale, was parked at the gate when the possible lightning strike occurred. Passengers were moved to another plane to finish their trip down to Fort Lauderdale. Now, airport officials say there were reports of smoke on board the plane. Aircraft rescue and firefighting teams checked out the aircraft, but they did not find any serious issues. Now, in a statement, Southwest Airlines said that Southwest Airlines Flight 1476 sustained a possible lightning strike Monday evening while parked at the gate in Tampa. No injuries were reported, and we are following our safety procedures by taking the aircraft out of service for inspection. Our customers were reaccommodated to Fort Lauderdale on another aircraft, and they added that nothing is more important to Southwest than the safety of their customers as well as their employees. Now, officials are still working to determine whether lightning caused smoke to enter that plane or why there was any type of smoke on that plane in the first place. Garrett?
It sounds like a scary situation there. Story number 3, and that is a water warning.
Yes. While it is summertime and it is super hot outside, so it may be very tempting to jump into a body of water, but people need to be aware that there could be the presence of flesh-eating bacteria in that water. Florida leads the nation in cases of Vibrio vulnificus. It is a rare but deadly flesh-eating bacteria that thrives in warm, brackish water. Now, that bacteria enters the body through open wounds or scratches, especially when people are swimming or wading in that brackish water. Now, brackish water is a mix of fresh and salt water, which is commonly found in estuaries and canals. New data from the Florida Department of Health confirms that there have been 11 confirmed cases in Florida so far this year, and 4 people have died, including a person here in Hillsborough County. Now, since the pandemic, the number of flesh-eating bacteria cases in Florida has steadily climbed, which some experts say may be due in part to people moving to the state who are not familiar with the water conditions. Last year, there were 82 cases and 19 deaths, numbers driven up by post-hurricane flooding. We did speak with a professor of medicine at USF who said that many Florida counties were underwater last year because of the hurricanes, and that actually creates the ideal conditions for bacteria to thrive. That professor said that people were trying to rescue their pets as well as their belongings, so they weren't thinking about what was happening to their legs and feet as they were wading in that post-hurricane water. Now keep in mind, all it takes is a small cut for the bacteria to enter. The infection typically begins as a reddish rash or streak and can become extremely painful within 12 to 36 hours if left untreated. Now, these cases usually peak in August. That's when water temperatures are at their warmest, allowing the bacteria to replicate quickly. Now, experts advise thoroughly cleaning wounds that you may get while within the water. They recommend cleaning those wounds with soap and water, applying triple antibiotic ointment, and monitoring the area closely for any type of signs of infection. Garrett?
Yeah, you can't be too careful. Like you said, it really doesn't take much of an opening for that bacteria to kind of take hold.
Yeah, and as we mentioned last year during the hurricane flooding, people were so focused on other things. They probably weren't even thinking, oh, I have this little cut on my foot, or while they're walking through the flood waters that they cut their foot open. They were not thinking about that. They are concerned more about rescuing their pets and animals, as well as trying to save some of their belongings. So it is definitely a concern and something to keep in mind this year as hurricane season, as the storms start to ramp up here.
And story number 4 today, and that is some new additions at Busch Gardens.
Yes, that's right. The long-awaited Wild Oasis has officially opened at Busch Gardens today. The Wild Oasis will include kid-friendly attractions such as a new water drop tower ride, climbing structures, a splash pad, and new animal species in the park's Jungala area. The Habitat Hideaway exhibit will feature new capybaras, giant anteaters, squirrel monkeys, and tropical birds, all in what Busch Gardens describes as a lush, natural environment. Guests will be able to view the animals at ground level as well as from above. Now, Busch Gardens says that the Tree Top Drop is a 35-foot drop tower in which riders will be surrounded by jungle scenes displayed on screens. There will also be an interactive splash pad, a canopy climb, and a self-guided educational scavenger hunt with a focus on the various species found in the rainforest. Garrett?
Sounds like a lot of fun, and since there's capybaras there, we know that Nancy is interested in it.
Yes, definitely. I have to get out there to check them out.
All right, Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon for our Tampa Connection.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is a Tuesday. That means it's a Playbook Tuesday here on Florida Live, where we talk with our friends at the Politico Florida about things that are happening in Florida politics. Today, I spoke with Kimberly Leonard, who is not only a Politico reporter, but the author of the Florida Playbook newsletter you can get in your inbox. We've talked about Attorney General James Othmeyer trying to woo Donald Trump and a potential endorsement in the AG's race. We talked about Byron Donalds and Governor Ron DeSantis, their relationship as we get closer to the 2026 gubernatorial race. And we also talked about Tesla on trial in South Florida.
Yeah, I got to attend the trial yesterday. They were picking jurists, and it was so fascinating. So there is a case, it's the very first one to make it to federal trial that looks at Tesla's autopilot program. And if you've ever driven in a Tesla, it is pretty amazing. You know, the car basically drives itself, but it really is supposed to serve more as an assist to the driver, where the driver still has to pay attention and so forth. So what this case is looking at is a particular crash from 2019 where there was a man who was driving down by Key Largo, and he had his foot on the accelerator, and he was on the phone. He drops his phone, reaches down to get it, and the Tesla, instead of stopping or alerting him to, you know, put his hands back on the wheel, continues to drive because he had his foot on the accelerator. So the question that jurists are being asked to look at with this trial, which is expected to go about 3 weeks and started on Monday, is, you know, whether Tesla bears joint responsibility for how for what happened, and therefore the family of one person who died and another who's very severely injured could seek damages. So I'm not going to be going to every day of the trial, but I'm going to be visiting in quite a bit, and it just struck me in listening to you know, those who were being considered for jury duty, how many different issues were coming up. Obviously, they were being asked about whether they had any sort of bias, positive or negative, toward Elon Musk, given how involved he's been with the federal government. And then there were just a lot of comments that people had about, you know, machines and how they work, and electric vehicles. There were some people that said they didn't like them, and, you know, AI and automation. So it just kind of brings together all these really interesting things that are happening in our technology sphere, as well as obviously the really big personality of Elon Musk.
Yeah, and going to be big implications depending on what happens from that trial as well.
Yeah, exactly. And Tesla is saying that they do not have responsibility, that the driver was reckless and distracted. So that's their position. And they had a big team of lawyers in court yesterday.
Do we expect to hear from Elon Musk? Is he going to be at that trial?
No, he wasn't there. I don't think he will be there, but they're going to be using his comments against him throughout the trial. The plaintiff's team made that really clear, where basically they're saying that Musk overly hyped what the car could do, that he made it seem like basically it was a driverless scenario. You know, it isn't really. It seems like it. I've ridden in one before. You know, it seems like the car is kind of doing its own thing, but the driver, especially in 2019, does need to be, you know, paying attention, and ultimately has to be kind of watching what the car is doing and what's happening around him or her.
Kimberly, let's talk a little bit about the 2026 governor's race. There's a new poll out. We heard from Byron Donalds over the weekend. Sounds like, you know, there's a lot going on with this right now.
Yeah, Byron was here in Miami, and I was able to attend the breakfast and talk to him, you know, individually. I really pressed him on this question about Governor DeSantis because, you know, DeSantis has made it clear that he doesn't see Donalds, who has been endorsed by Trump, as the right person to succeed him. Donalds is still playing it really cool and, you know, just saying, hey, I'm open to talking to him. I just want to continue what he achieved in Florida. And he really kept it very positive, and is not getting into a fight over it. The party doesn't really want to have an internal battle over the governor's race, but they probably will. And the poll that came out was from St. Pete polls, and it does have a few issues because, first of all, you know, Governor DeSantis hasn't said who exactly he's going to back for governor. And so that could really change the poll, you know, not just if people know that someone's endorsed by Trump, but if Floridians know they're endorsed by DeSantis, who is still really popular among Republicans, that could change how they vote. But it did make it seem as though if, for example, Florida First Lady Casey DeSantis were to get into the race against Byron Donalds, that he would be leading in the polls in that case. But, there's still a lot of time. There's still a lot of fundraising, still a lot that could come out about either candidate. So it's very early, but it did give us a little bit of a snapshot into it.
And when do we expect the governor to tap that lieutenant governor?
I wish I knew. Look, it's still in flux. I will say that, and sure, it could be as early as this week, or maybe he'll leave it open and in limbo. So we're just keeping an eye on it. There's just a lot of developments happening behind the scenes. And, I do expect, however, that DeSantis is going to be very involved in 26 in terms of making sure that, his legacy is cemented in the state.
Meanwhile, you also have written about the Attorney General, James Othmeyer, working to woo Donald Trump when it comes to that AG's race.
Yeah, we had a really in-depth story about James Othmeyer. We were able to learn a lot about what's been going on behind the scenes. If Trump stays out of the race, it's going to be hard for someone to challenge Othmeyer just because that incumbency that he has and the big platform of, doing things like Alligator Alcatraz and some of the other big high profile things that he's done that have attracted national news make it really difficult. But there's still an effort there to, I would say, resolve things. And Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff has been directly involved in talking up Othmeyer to the president. Othmeyer has also been talking to Joe Gruters a good amount. We saw a picture of him at a UF basketball game. Now, Gruters is someone that the DeSantis team has not gotten along with. They've had a frosty relationship for a long time, but Othmeyer is clearly working to get close to Trump world in order to perhaps get that endorsement. And, I think it's possible that he will. I had a lot of Trump world folks say essentially that he was being very smart in the way that he was going about it. And, let's not forget, Othmeyer also used to work for Trump in the Trump administration, the first one before he came to the DeSantis orbit. But he also managed Governor DeSantis's presidential campaign. So that makes it a little sticky, but he seems to be doing all the right things, checking off all the right boxes.
What's next in Florida politics, Kimberly, before we let you go here?
Well, one of the big things I'm watching today on Tuesday is that it's the FEC deadline for the second quarter. So members of Congress and those who are running for Congress also have to file their second quarter financial report. So that'll show us where their money is going, that they're raising for reelection or for election for the first time, as well as, not just where it's going, but also how much they're raising. So it's going to give us a good sense, especially with some of these battleground seats. Not hugely battleground in Florida, which is shifting really red, but there are a few seats, a handful. Anna Paulina Luna's seat, for example, Darren Soto's seat, Jared Moskowitz's seat over on the Democratic side as well, that each side sort of say that they are homing in on. And so the money gives us a good sense of how competitive races are. Usually the more that's being raised, the more you can tell that either side sees it as, okay, we have to raise cash because this is going to be potentially winnable.
Kimberly Leonard, Politico reporter and the author of the Florida Playbook newsletter. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back with more Florida Live after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Wymer here, and thanks for joining us live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is Tuesday afternoon, and this morning, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee held a hearing in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill, a confirmation hearing for Mike Waltz, the former congressman from Central Florida, who is nominated now for U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. The hearing did get a little fiery at times as he was asked about Signalgate, the scandal that led to his ouster as a national security advisor. That was where a journalist was added to a group chat that included a conversation over upcoming military operations, some sensitive information there. So he was asked about that by a number of senators, and mainly Democratic senators on that committee. So I want to play for you a segment, and we're going to hear from Senator Cory Booker asking about some of that scandal. Then you'll also hear from a couple of other Republican senators as well, questioning Mike Waltz during that hearing today.
There's a lot of room in between where we have troops and necessarily if we're at war. So, for example, we've had troops in Colombia for quite some time. They're not actively engaged in combat. They're engaged in a training mission to help that government by through our presence on the ground.
Afghanistan was
and
one of the
so
rare
I think
times.
one of the things at the time the president was looking to do was...
Afghanistan was one of the rare times when Congress actually had authorized. We voted for an authorization, of course. It's one of the few times I can think of in recent history I would have actually supported that resolution. Congress voted to send the troops to Afghanistan to get the people who attacked us on 9/11. And yet you were willing to, in a war zone where soldiers were at war, place restrictions on the president's ability to move troops around based on women's access to voting. There's also another clause in there that said based on how well the Afghans were dealing with disabilities. Look, I have a great deal for people with disabilities. That's a big issue in our country, but it really isn't an issue of war. And to hamstring and tie President Trump's hands and say, oh, well, you can't remove, troops until we discuss how well the Afghan government is dealing with disabilities. So they're going to be able to deal with disabilities when we go. I guess it just worries me that you come more from the Liz Cheney wing of the party than the Donald Trump wing of the party.
Senator, I am squarely with the president, have been with him in every single election I participated in, and him with me in terms of the limits on hard power. And I can tell you for certain that people who hate war the most are the people that have to go fight them and die from them. I have many of them with me, and I never want to attend another funeral, and I certainly support the president's diplomacy first, as I know you do, approach, as we just saw in the Middle East, his commercial diplomacy that we're seeing around the world, and will do everything I can, if confirmed as Ambassador of the United Nations, to keep us out of wars and to end conflicts.
Senator Booker.
Congressman Waltz, I've watched this hearing, and I've been really disappointed. And what's been troubling to me about your nomination from the beginning is your failure to just stand up and take accountability for mistakes that you made and that all Americans know that you've made. Everyone in this room, every one of us has made mistakes, but what America expects from leaders, especially leaders who are tasked with our national security or could be tasked with the position for which you're nominated for, is for people to stand up and just take responsibility, take accountability. But I heard you just blame Biden. I've seen you not only fail to stand up, but lie. You said about this person when you were involved in the sharing of sensitive information about imminent military operations. I've listened to you now for weeks and months. You said this journalist intentionally infiltrated that signal chain. You said that he was sucked in. You denied, deflected, and then you did something that to me really lacks integrity, is that you sought out to demean and degrade that very journalist in crass and, frankly, cruel ways that made him a target. That's not leadership. When you blame people that tell the truth, that's not leadership. When you can't say the words, I made a mistake, I could have done better, I learned valuable lessons from this experience. Instead, at a moment where our national security was clearly compromised, you denied, you deflected, and then you demeaned and degraded those people who objectively told the truth and criticized your actions. Smearing people, attacking folks, singling them out, just furthers, it compounds what I think is disqualifying about you for this position. It also, to me, just shows profound cowardice. You should step up right now. I heard Senator Coons. I heard you being asked by Senator Kaine again and again to simply say, I was wrong. I made a mistake. I take responsibility for my actions. Unfortunately, what you're doing to me is perfectly in line with the way this administration as a whole has operated. I've never seen an administration that has made no mistakes, can't learn constructively from things they did wrong, has no sense of self-interrogation or integrity. And should they be criticized legitimately, they go on the attack. We have too much of that rhetoric, that divisive, demeaning, degrading, cruelness that's being elevated and celebrated by this administration that you seem to fall in line with. I just watched with great disappointment that even after weeks, if not months of reflection, you couldn't sit before this committee and take some responsibility and talk constructively about what's learned. Instead, you do what seems to be yet another creative tool that people are doing, which is, hey, let me just blame Biden. I want to take another moment to discuss concerns I have with this administration's approach to the United Nations and its dealings with African countries. Every country in the UN gets one vote in the General Assembly, no matter how large or small it is. So diplomacy and staffing at our State Department and their embassies really matter, but this administration has fired over 1,350 staff at the State Department, including whole offices that spearheaded multilateral affairs. Sub-Saharan Africa has alone, the member states have 49 votes. I've watched how China has done everything they can to court support at the United Nations and how we wonder why are so many countries voting against us. And I truly believe, and I've said this to the Secretary of State, that we need to start prioritizing African nations, start focusing on what I believe is urgently within our national interests, if not our national security interests. It seems to me that we are ceding and surrendering Sub-Saharan Africa to China, who is stepping up more and more and filling in the void of our leadership. So I have no questions for you, sir. I have nothing but deep disappointment in what I consider a failure of leadership on your part. God, America needs now more than ever, forget the partisanship, just people to step up and show heart and integrity and honor. When you lie, defer, deflect, demean, and degrade journalists, to me, it's absolutely unacceptable. I have no questions. I cannot support your nomination. I think you've shown a failure of leadership at a time that America especially needs people of honor to stand up and show what leadership actually is.
Senator Scott.
Sure. Well, first off, congratulations to each one of you for your nominations and for your individual success. So if each of you could just take a couple minutes and say, assume you get through this wonderful process and you get confirmed on the floor, which is difficult right now. What are you going to get? What would be success at the end of your time as in these roles? Mike, you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate your support. I appreciate the men and women that I've had to lead in combat, and I think the last thing they would call me is a coward. So I appreciate deeply our relationship, both for the good of Florida and for the good of the country. What does success look like in the UN? It looks like, again, under the President and Secretary's leadership, one, getting it back to actually solving problems. The things that we are seeing, the successes that we've seen under this president, a peace agreement in Africa, resolving what could have been a nuclear exchange between Pakistan and India, securing our border. Heck, even a water treaty that Mexico wasn't honoring that we established in 1944 for South Texan farmers. The ongoing efforts going from at least here to here in terms of Ukraine and Russia and trying to end that horrific conflict, a ceasefire with Israel and Iran. I could continue. I mean, it's been an amazing 6 months, and it's just beginning. Those should be dealt with in the UN. That should be the place where we're coming together. We've talked about the anti-Semitism that has to go. We've talked about the reforms in terms of these 80-plus agencies with often duplicative and wasteful mandates. I want to give some time to my colleagues here, but if I get just those things done in support of Secretary Rubio and the President, I think we'll have made a tremendous step forward.
We'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us this afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Attorney General James Uthmeier was in Orlando earlier today calling on U.S. Masters Swimming, a Florida-based nonprofit, to ban biological men from competing in women's competitive swimming events. Now, U.S. Masters swimming policies allow transgender women to compete, but they are not eligible for recognition programs. The Attorney General says he wants USMS to ban all participation and is threatening legal action if they don't.
So, U.S. Masters Swimming. Let's back up a minute. It's been over 5 years since Florida was the first state to pass a law protecting women's sports in our public school system. So thankfully, we have none of those shenanigans going on here in Florida, while other states continue to see the insanity and continue to have women that are treated unfairly, women that are not given the opportunity to compete freely and fairly, and have the opportunity of the joy of competition, the joy of training, of preparing, of going into competition and ultimately getting to stand on a podium, not having a man standing next to them or above them. U.S. women's swimming, master swimming, has been known, they're pretty prominent for allowing men to compete in women's events. Many of their largest competitions in recent past have resulted in the victors being men competing in women's sports. Over the last month, they've instituted a new temporary policy, I think because they realized that there were complaints and concerns and possible legal action coming. So they created a new policy that purports to try to protect women's sports, but it does not get the job done. They now say they will reserve, it appears, some competitions for just women, but not all. And they have some loopholes where, you know, if you go through a transition process, you could become eligible again to compete in any one of these competitions. This is not acceptable. It does not fly with Florida law. We will use every tool at our disposal, from our civil rights laws to our anti-discrimination laws to our consumer protection laws, to ensure that we are protecting women and girls. As these ladies can tell you later, the other aspect here is the safety issues of having men in women's locker rooms. We've been active across the state where we've seen gyms and locker rooms allowing men to have access. We put them on notice. This does not fly with Florida law. We will not tolerate it, and we will hold you accountable if you are going to endanger our women and girls. So we hope they will do the right thing and quickly certify in writing that they are going to ensure that no women are able to participate in any event with women. And if they don't do so, then we will pursue additional legal action. I just think about women that go through the training, the sacrifice. If you're going to be a good competitor, it takes discipline, it takes good diet, it takes a healthy lifestyle, good sleeping habits, sacrificing time away from fun and friends. And I can just imagine somebody, getting into a swimming lane and looking next to them and seeing a big man.
That's Attorney General James Uthmeyer in Orlando earlier today. Well, thanks for joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are here weekdays at 2 o'clock, and we will see you at this same time tomorrow. We appreciate you joining us today. Stay safe out there as the rain continues to fall.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist TJ Springer joins me live now. TJ, it is 3 o'clock here, and so we wanted to check in. I know we've talked a lot about the flooding threat today. We've seen high water in some places, and that rain just continued to fall. 3 o'clock now, things are a little bit calmer than they were, I think, probably the last time we checked in, but there's still some things that folks need to be aware of.
Oh, definitely, Garrett. Yeah, it's been a day where if you did not bring the umbrella, it kind of can be a day ruiner. It's not, I feel like you really need the rain gear today.
Yeah, no doubt about that, because we've seen places get, upwards of 6 inches in just a matter of hours.
Yeah, and it is still coming down as you hit on. Thankfully, the pockets of heavy rain have diminished maybe a little bit, but we still have a lot of rain out there, and we still have more bands that are developing off to our south and east as this area of low pressure is working in. So that's what we're going to be watching through the remainder of the afternoon. We can see up across portions of Marion County right now some heavier bursts of rain between Ocala and Bellevue on top of US 27. And we also have some heavier rain still circulating through northern Volusia County, just to the north of Pearson along US 17. And now, eventually, we're going to see all of this rain shift westbound along with this area of low pressure. Some of the more heavy bursts of rain and the more widespread rain. But just like in any tropical system, you have bands, right, that are working around this area of low pressure, or a area of low pressure, an area of low pressure that will, oftentimes bring us the heaviest pockets. And we still have some of these bands that are developing here this afternoon, where we have had a little more instability across some of Brevard County, Osceola County, and now eastern Orange County. They looked a little meaner a little bit ago with a little more lightning, and they've since weakened. And that's kind of the nature of this system, because it is a weak system. We don't have a lot of turning of the wind or stronger wind upstairs in the atmosphere to support really strong storm activity, but it's still possible that we could see a couple of stronger storms through the remainder of the afternoon with gusty wind and certainly heavy rain. Now, in terms of some of the numbers, as Garrett and I were just talking about, you can see northern Brevard County, a big bullseye there, close to 8.5 inches of rain. Some of Volusia County picking up around 5 to 6 inches. And we also have some spots down across southeastern Orange County and more central Brevard County, closer to Lake Poinsett, where we've seen amounts top out over half a foot. So still a lot of rain to come. We do have flood watches right now across all of Central Florida, and we've also had some flood advisories, Garrett, that have been issued. Now we can see these for portions of Marion County between 3:45 and 5 o'clock that they'll expire because of the heavy rains. So really, these are more for the low-lying areas, some of the flood-prone areas, not the flash flooding where you see rushing water down the street, but just kind of the spots that we'll see the water cell. Is kind of what those flood advisories mean.
Yeah, we've seen some issues. We know of some issues in Edgewater. Can you kind of show us some of the rainfall totals that they may have seen there?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and
I know you mentioned Mims. That was definitely a place that we are aware of some issues as well, and you're certainly not surprised when you see those rainfall totals there. But
oh my gosh, it's so true, Garrett. Let me zoom back in here. Yeah, so there's Edgewater, and we can see amounts that have certainly been up close to likely 3 to maybe even 4 inches. Let me drop a couple pins here. We can get a better, around 4 inches. Radar estimated across Edgewater, New Smyrna, and really all around I-95 here, the I-95 corridor, in eastern Volusia County. So there has been a lot of rain in Volusia County, a lot of rain in Brevard. Not quite as much just yet, at least, out across some of our western neighborhoods, in portions of Lake County and Sumter County. But as this rain continues to work westbound, we'll see totals rising there, Garrett, for sure. And that's why we have these flood watches in play through 8 o'clock.
Yeah, so where do things go from here? Just kind of walk us through the next little bit and kind of where things are headed.
That sounds great. Well, in terms of the timeline here, our Fox weather model, and you can kind of see that swirl too, Garrett. That's that center of circulation with this Invest 93. Now, through the remainder of the afternoon, we continue to see this shifting west. Still some of those bands to the south and east circle up toward the metro as we head towards 7, 8 o'clock. So I'd say by around dinner time, past the evening drive, things are certainly improving. We're not seeing as much widespread of rain, I should say. And that trend continues through late this evening into the wee hours of our Wednesday. But we're still going to be getting this, southeasterly breeze working around the circulation. So that's an onshore flow for us. There's still a lot of tropical moisture with us. Still humid tomorrow. But nowhere near as much rain as what we've seen today. But you can kind of see the hit or miss nature, more scattered showers and thunderstorms. And I think with the sea breeze too tomorrow, that'll help kind of aid in seeing more storms ignite for the afternoon and evening. But I would say tomorrow, a pretty good improvement compared to what we saw today. And then Garrett, we'll have to watch this area of low pressure from here because there are kind of multiple scenarios. But I would say that Certainly depression seems likely out of this, but we'll be watching if this area of low pressure can hang out over the Gulf a little longer and potentially turn into something stronger like a tropical storm Dexter, or maybe even a low-end hurricane. I mean, that's not completely out of the question. Chances are slim, but I would say at least a depression is going to be coming our way later on this week.
What factors are you looking at as you kind of play out these scenarios?
Say it one more time, Garrett. I'm sorry.
What factors are you looking at as you kind of look at these different scenarios and what may end up taking hold?
Sure. Well, definitely one of the big ones is the temperature of the water. And you can kind of see right where we have this area of interest or this risk area from the National Hurricane Center, we have water temperatures that are in the mid to upper 80s to right around 90. I wouldn't be shocked if off coastal Louisiana there are some spots that are right around 90. So that is certainly fuel for anything to try to feed off of and organize more, strengthen more. But kind of the fly in the ointment, so to speak, would be some wind shear that some of the data has hinted at, because we're kind of in the middle of two different areas of high pressure with this low right in the middle. So with that, and it looks like even another wave trying to come up from the southeast through the Caribbean, that could aid in some of this wind shear. So that may try to keep it a little bit weaker. So that would be what we'd have to watch if some of that starts to come to fruition. And I think over the next couple of days I'll have a better handle on that. But that's kind of what would potentially turn it into a more weaker scenario versus dealing with less wind shear and likely a stronger storm.
All right, the Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist TJ Springer, we appreciate you joining us and giving us that update here. It is now 3:08, so hopefully things will kind of continue to stay a little bit calmer as the evening goes on, but still got to keep an eye out for those flood watches.
Definitely, yeah. Grab the rain jacket, grab the umbrella if you're heading out. You'll definitely need it.
All right, TJ, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Garrett. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be back at 4 o'clock with more Fox 35 News Plus. Keep it here on Fox Local.
And we're getting these bands around it, but it's going to emerge in the Gulf early tomorrow. So great question. Bob, it's probably not going to stop raining consistently in Ocala until later on tonight. And I can go through our Fox model here in a moment. Let me show you this. So here is our spaghetti model. Storm potential a little lower, hurricane potential lower
TJ,
than
any
that.
chance you're dialed in right now?
But there is a low end chance. Oh, Garrett, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We are live on Facebook and YouTube. So Josh came and let me know. So we're just gonna. I told him that they could stay on Facebook and YouTube, and they'll be getting a little bit of our show too.
All right, we're about 15 seconds out, and then we will toss to you.
Sounds perfect. Thanks, buddy.
Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you and welcome into Florida Live.